Hey, and welcome to The Explainer. Today we're going to talk about a design pattern that might just be one of the most powerful, yet kind of under the radar tools in a developer's toolkit. It's called the Service Provider Interface, or SPI. And look, if you've ever been trapped in what feels like an endless integration nightmare, yeah, you're going to want to stick around for this.
So let me ask you, does this sound familiar? You've just built this awesome new service, right? And it needs to talk to an external tool. Let's say a calendar. Easy enough. You write the integration, but then, the marketing team wants to use a different calendar. And then a new partner comes along and may need a third one. Before you know it, you are drowning in a sea of custom, one-off integration code. It's a super common trap, and it's a frustrating one.
And this is what it looks like in practice. It's just a mess, a brittle web of direct connections. Your main service, let's call it a booking service, is now hardwired or tightly coupled to Google Calendar. So when you need to add Outlook, well, you've got to wire that one in directly too. You can already see the problem, right? This whole approach, it just doesn't scale. Right, this is exactly what we mean by the integration trap. Because when you hard code every single connection, you're not just making more work for yourself today. No, you're actually building a system that's going to be incredibly slow and painful to change down the road. You're literally capping your own product's potential for growth. Okay, so what if there was a better way? A more elegant solution to all this integration chaos? Well, there is, and it's called the Service Provider Interface. Think of it as the secret ingredient for building systems that are genuinely plug and play.
So let's get the official definition out of the way. An SPI is basically an API that's designed to be implemented by somebody else. The entire point is to let you swap out components, which gives your main service this superpower to work with providers that, you haven't even heard of yet.
All right, let's make this super simple with an analogy. I want you to think of an SPI as a universal power adapter for your services. You know the one, right? Your laptop needs power, but the wall outlets in every country are totally different. You're not going to buy a new laptop for every country you visit, are you? No way. You just use an adapter. And this whole power adapter idea, it's perfect for understanding all the key players in an SPI system. So let's break down exactly who's who in this setup. Okay, check this out. It maps perfectly. The SPI host, that's your service. It's your laptop that needs the power. The SPI implementer is the third-party service, the actual power grid in whatever country you're in. The SPI contract, that's the important one. It's the set of rules, the shape of the plug that has to fit. And finally, the SPI registry, that's your little bag of travel adapters, the kit where you find the one you need. And the whole flow, it's honestly beautifully simple, just 2 steps. First, your service, the host, looks up the provider it needs in the registry. It's like you digging through your adapter kit. Then, once it finds the right one, it just connects to the implementer using the rules from the contract. You plug it into the wall, and that's it. The best part is your service never has to know any of the nitty-gritty details about the provider it's talking to. All right, so let's zoom in on what is arguably the most critical piece of this whole puzzle. That rulebook, the SPI contract. Because getting this right is everything. It's the key to making sure your system is stable and can actually scale. Okay, so at the service level, there are some musts. These are non-negotiable. You need a unique ID so the registry can tell things apart. You need a clear way to handle configuration. And you need a standardized name, like a fully qualified domain name. Now, this might sound like a bunch of bureaucracy, but it's not. This is what guarantees that every single plug is going to fit perfectly into the socket every time. And that same discipline carries over to the method level. We're talking about sticking to just HTTP post requests. It keeps everything consistent. You absolutely have to version your endpoints clearly, like /v1/mymethod. And a big one, no dynamic path parameters. Don't do it. And why all these rules? It's all about one thing, eliminating any possible confusion so that every single provider implements this contract in the exact same predictable way. But, of course, nothing in software is set in stone forever, right? Things have to evolve. But I've got to warn you, changing an SPI contract, it's a tricky business. It has some really surprising, almost backward rules, especially when you start talking about backward compatibility. Okay, you're going to want to pay really close attention to this next part, because this is where a lot of people get tripped up. With an SPI, everything you know about backwards compatibility is basically flipped on its head. Think about it. If you remove a field from a request, that's a breaking change. Why? Because the provider, the implementer, is expecting to receive it. But if you remove a field from the response, totally safe. Your service, the host, can just ignore the data it doesn't need anymore. It's a complete 180 from how we usually think about APIs. So that begs the question,
How do you add new features? Well, you can safely add new endpoints to your SPI, but there's a catch. You can't just force all the existing implementers to support them overnight. So, the solution is pretty clever. You use a feature toggle right in the SPI config. This lets providers opt in to the new shiny features when they're ready, and it doesn't break a single thing for everyone else.
Okay, so this brings us to the big strategic question. This SPI stuff sounds super powerful, right? But when should you actually build one? It's not for every situation. It really comes down to balancing all of that power with a dose of practicality. There's a great quote from the source material that just hits the nail on the head. It says, on one hand, this is amazing and lets you swap out any service. But on the other hand, the cost, both in design time and in your production footprint, is going to be high. It perfectly sums up the trade-off. SPIs give you incredible flexibility, but it's not a free lunch. There's a real upfront cost. And that leads us to a really clear takeaway here. Don't go building SPIs for everything. You just don't need to. Save this powerful pattern for the spots where the business case is a slam dunk, where you know for a fact that you're going to need to support multiple swappable providers. Things like payment gateways, shipping providers, or, those calendar integrations we talked about earlier. Those are the perfect candidates. All right, so let's say you've done it. You've found the perfect use case in your project, and you're ready to build your first SPI. What's next? Let's walk through a high-level guide to get you up and running. Okay, so here's the 7-step game plan. First up, create your SPI host. Then, you write the SPI definition. That's your all-important contract. Step 3, register that component. 4, you actually implement the host side. 5, you test that host like crazy. Step 6 is fun. You write a sample implementation, kind of playing the role of a provider to make sure your design holds up. And last but not least, step 7, you test the whole shebang end-to-end in production. So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with this question. Think about the projects you're working on right now. Where are your integration traps? Where are those hidden bottlenecks that slow you down? What service in your project is just crying out for its own universal adapter? Thanks for joining us for this explainer.